happy to dive into my childhood. I obviously use a lot of humor to talk about things, but
Of course.
yeah, man, my childhood was not typical. But then again, like, man, you've been doing this a long time. I've recorded over 600 podcasts with guests, and no one's had a normal childhood. Like, so I don't share this story out of pity, but I will share this. I'm 45, born in 1975. Parents were married in 1971. They were together for like 4 years. I was born year after I was born. Mom and dad divorced. They split up. I think he was really bitter. I don't know all the details to it, but what I do know is it's pretty bad. He left, gone. And then I have no recollection of him whatsoever. When I was 4, and I still remember this, 41 years ago, I still remember this. When I was 4, I was in preschool. I knew what a dad was. Men would come to pick up their kids from preschool. I knew, oh, that's so-and-so's dad. Okay, I know what a dad is. But my interpretation of what a dad was like moms go out and they find dads. That was my understanding. Oh, my mom hasn't found one yet. No big deal. Didn't bother me. Didn't feel like I was missing out on one thing. Then my mom brings home a guy for the first time that she had been dating for a while. She worked with him. I will never, ever, ever forget the night this guy came over for dinner to meet me. He came over. He walked right through the front doors. 1979. He had a trench coat on, the handlebar mustache. He was white collar data processor worker for Citicorp. He had a briefcase, literally double Windsor. The vest and feathered hair. And he comes walking in. He shakes my hand, and the first question I asked this poor guy was, "Oh, you're going to be my dad, right?" And like literally, it's the first question out of my mouth. And I remember him laughing about it. Lo and behold, a year later, they got married. They were married for 6 years. They got divorced when I was 10. And what I can tell you is that particular relationship, man, it started out great. And then about 2 years into it, for the next, 4 years after that, it was a lot of alcohol, a lot of abuse, a lot of really dark moments. My mom and him would beat on each other. He would beat on me. I mean, it was bad. And then when he left, that was it. I've never seen him since. Actually, I found out not too long ago he passed away. But I haven't seen him since I was 10. Started asking a lot of questions about like, hey, well, where did I come from? Now I understood where dads, what their role was.
Right.
My mom was like, well, I was married. Here's a photo of your dad, wedding album, the whole 9 yards. So I knew his name, knew what he looked like. By accident, when I was 12, I met him. It wasn't on purpose. Same place, same time type of scenario. We don't have time for the details, but I will tell you I met him. He was remarried, 2-year-old son, another one on the way. We hung out for about 6 months. After about 6 months, we had a conversation. I don't recollect how it went. All I know is it went bad. It went bad to the point where I can't do this right now. This is complicated. We need to go our separate ways. And that's what we did. And that was gut-wrenching, man. Just absolutely gut-wrenching. I know this is faith and fitness and all that. I became an emotional eater, got really overweight, never worked out. My mom was in and out of another couple marriages, always dated men in between. The guys that she was dating were always the same guy, alcohol, drugs. I mean, just a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I'll finish the story here. When I was 30, I know I skipped over a lot, but that's okay. When I was 30, 2 big things happened. Number 1, found out I was going to be a father for the first time. I was happy, terrified. I was in Starbucks with a good friend of mine when I was 30, just sitting there having my morning coffee. Who comes walking in for his morning coffee but my biological father? I had not seen him since I was 12.
Oh my gosh. 18 years had gone by
18
after
years.
that. You guys had a relationship for 6 months.
Yep.
Some kind of relationship. I'm sure you kind of got some hopes up, or wow, we've reconnected. This is pretty sweet. I missed this. I had a big hole in my life and it's getting filled a little bit. And then that goes away. 18 years. So you're going to be a dad yourself. And the irony is that yours just walks right back into your life while having coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
And so what happens? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was sitting there with a friend of mine. I had been friends with her for a long time. And I was like, and there was only maybe a handful of people at most in my life who knew all of this that I just told you. Right.
Yes.
But she was one of them. She was a really clear, near and dear close friend. And I was like, hey, you'll never guess who just walked in this coffee shop. And she's like, who? I was like, see that guy over there? That's my father. And she's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, nope. She's like, whoa, what are you going to go do? What are you going to say? I was like, absolutely nothing. what am I going to say? Like, it's been 18 years since I saw him. I spent 6 months with him. You know, last time we talked, it was horrible. I'm 30. I don't even know how old he is, in his 50s. There's no point. Without saying one word, not one, didn't even respond. She got up and walked over to him. And I was like, holy crap, what is she doing? I saw them talking. He was at the other end of the coffee shop. Our eyes met, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do here? Do I stay? Do I run? Do I pee down my leg? Like, what do I do? He came humbly walking over, and he just started asking me questions like, how have you been? Like, how's your life? Are you married? You know, I'm like, yeah, I'm married and about ready to have a kid. And, you know, we should get together. And I'm like, I think my response was something along the lines of, you don't have to do this. You know, we're good. Right. And he's like, no, I want to. And I was like, I'll tell you what, here's my card. Ball's in your court if you want to.
Right.
And it wasn't 2 hours later, I got an email this long. And it was a lot of humility. We decided to have breakfast, and here we are 15 years later. We have a relationship. We've had a relationship for the past 15 years. I would say it's a very good friendship. Definitely not, I don't call him dad when talking to him. It's just, I think it'd be weird for both of us, kind of, right? I have 2 younger half brothers that I get along with great. I see that he's been married to the same woman for 40 plus years, get along with her great. And it's, we have decided, we're like, you know, the past is the past. He's 73 years old. I don't know how much time he has left. And I'm just excited about what the future has to hold for both of us. And that is where my mentality is around it.
Right. Well, good for you for being, you know, a big enough man to be open to it. Because I think a lot of people would be, they just shut themselves off from those possibilities. The hurt, the pain, the fact that, you know, an adult made a conscious decision to exclude you from his life is enough to push people away forever. They can't come back from it. That's pretty tremendous. I mean, at least, like you said, you guys may not look at each other as typical father-son relationship, but the fact that you know each other and there's a friendship there, at least you have that. And I'm sure anyone listening who maybe doesn't have a parent, maybe never met their parent, maybe was adopted, you know, and didn't have a good relationship with their adopted parents and always had a desire to meet. It's almost like an adoption type scenario, you know, where you end up meeting your biological parent as an adult and there's no real history there, but you want to start from somewhere. And you guys did that 15 years ago. And, you know, I'm sure you've learned a lot from each other. Like you said, the humility in his email to you was evident. And I'm sure it was very apologetic and, you know, realized all the wrongs that he was guilty of and just wanted to have his son in his life on whatever you were capable of giving him. And so that's great though. I'm glad it's at least worked to that for you. That's pretty impressive. Because
yeah, thank you, man.
There's a lot of people. Dude, I'm telling you, I'm sure you've read a lot on parenting and talked to people who are so good and wise when it comes to the relationship, the need for a mom and a dad, and the people that don't have that. I mean, we really are shorted in life. And I'm not to say that, you know, we all have different stories to tell. Sometimes those stories have abuse. Sometimes those stories have absence. The parent's just not there, not present. And then some of us are blessed with 2 parents that are very loving, and we could still go on to, you know, be terrible people or lazy people, right? I mean, we could still have everything working for us in our history. And then what do we do with it, you know? And then there's people who are shorted and then still find a way.
But there was one night where I was packing up my house Was drinking a few beers. I wasn't drunk, but I was drinking a few beers. That probably didn't help. And I was packing up my kid's playroom. 4-year-old came down. I went to take a break, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm packing up all your toys." And I was like, "I'm going to go take a break. Please don't get down any toys that I packed up." I was down there for probably 4 hours. Come downstairs. What do you think happened? Everything was like things were scattered, pulled out of boxes. What did I do? I spanked him. I spanked him so hard he hit the ground. And then when I went to help him up, he shuddered. And I was like, and in that moment, I saw me. Yeah. That's what I saw. I was like, wow, that's me. So that was a huge awakening. And my wife, who's very tolerant, very patient, never doesn't nag me, no drama whatsoever, great woman, looks at me and she's like, really? Really? He just wanted his toys. My wife never does that, ever. And if she does, it's never in front of my kids. That's when I knew, like, oh, wow, I just messed up. If I keep going down this road, what is going to happen? Yeah. So it was that night. What did I do? I did what every responsible adult would do. I went into my office and I distracted myself, went on Facebook.
Right? Yeah, because that nothing lifts you up like an hour of scrolling on Facebook.
Exactly. But I really think that was divine intervention that night. Okay. Because I was emotional. I was a bit of a wreck. I just went into my office to distract myself, and in the left-hand corner it said create a page. I don't know what it was, but the words "Good Dad Project" rolled off my heart and onto that keyboard, and and it was in that moment I surrendered. It wasn't anything that I had ever planned. And I just said to myself, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be married. I don't know how to be a father. And I am beating my head up against a wall with no guidance. So what do I need to do here? What makes sense right now, right here, right? And what made sense was, well, I invest all this time and effort and even money out of my own pocket to be better at my job, better leader, better manager, better sales, better communicator, better. What if I took on that exact same paradigm shift into this? And I just decided, hey, go be a student. Just as I'm like, hey, I'm a salesman. I'm going to go get sales training. Right. I'm a parent. I'm going to go get parent training. I'm a husband. Go get husband training. And that's what I did. I took that page and I decided, hey, I'm just going to go out and learn one new thing every day. It's going to become part of my daily regimen, just to learn something, read a book, read a blog, do something. And then I'm going to post it and share it here just as a student. That turned into a blog, which turned into a podcast, which turned into a book. And now you and I are sitting here 8 years later because of that really horrible moment. Right. And that has made all the difference in the world.
And your 12-year-old, I'm sure while he was contemplating that, eating while dumping, was feeling like he was the inspiration for daddy's trajectory in life. How cool is that?
Hey, you want to hear something really crazy? So we do a speaking event. We do an event every year called Dad Edge Summit. We've been doing it now for 3 years. And my 12-year-old wrote a book called Never Give Up No Matter What. It's a kid's book. It's about his journey as a football player, never being played, but he refused to give up when he wanted to. Wrote a book on it. So he spoke at our 2019 Dad Edge Summit, Kids' Point of View on Never Giving Up, Emotional Resiliency, Mental Toughness. And the event was Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I was supposed to do my speaking event, my portion of that summit on Friday. Again, probably divine intervention. My event, because I run it with 2 other facilitators, they're like, hey man, we're running short on time. You got to do your event tomorrow. And who's sitting in the front row as I'm about to share this story? Him. And I literally had like an anxiety attack because he knew, he kind of knew the story, but he didn't know the detail, right? And I had to stand there in front of him and 100 men and share the story of how Good Dad Project came about. And I looked at him and he was in full on tears listening to that. And then so was I. And he got up, hugged me, forgave me. And that was one of the most touching things I think I've ever to receive that forgiveness, 7 years later with a little boy that could have been like, screw you, Dad. Like, how could you, how dare you? But he's got that heart of forgiveness. So, but yeah, kind of interesting, how all these things sort of happen, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love it. I love what the lessons that we can learn from our children, and how they can just blow us away sometimes with their response, their reaction to things. How good-natured kids kind of, I say, are by nature, just naturally. Sure, kids can do some really dumb stuff, but there's an innocence there with children that's just so great. And it's unfortunately the outside world is so corruptive, and that good nature can fall away. But if we can find ways in our relationship with them to foster that, that's great. He's obviously got a big heart, and he's a sharp little guy. He's already writing books, so that's pretty awesome. But I've had similar. I don't have a moment like you in that regard, but I definitely had a few moments where I definitely lost myself in anger with my son for something, and kind of saw my dad in me, and it can scare the hell out of you, and you're like, well, that's not me, that's not right, that's not me, that's not what I want to be, that's not how I want my son to. I don't want my son to be afraid when I walk in the room. I don't want my son to be scared when he hears my car pull up or something, And I remember those feelings as a kid. When my dad would come home, we'd hear the truck coming down the street, and it was like, make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. It was like the anxiety level rose, because like we didn't want him walking in already half in the bag. We call half in the bag when you're coming home drunk at 5-6 o'clock because you've been drinking since lunch. As a functioning alcoholic, he worked for himself, so he could do whatever he wanted. And you wanted everything to be just right, so that night you could avoid getting screamed at or abused or punished in some way. And so I love walking in the room, and the kids like run to you because they're so happy you're home, and they're excited because dad is like a playground, right? You have 4 boys. How many times in your fatherhood, in your journey with them, have you been on the ground and there you got one hanging off this arm, one climbing on your leg, one's jumping on your back, and you're like, as crazy as it feels and seems, you're hoping like you don't get an eye gouged out. It's also pretty phenomenal at the same time. And your wife just kind of looking at it happening, going, "Yep, those are my boys," right?
Dude, you're describing what happened last night. I was out of town for 36 hours, and it was cool, man. It was really, really cool to come home to that. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, without doing this work and without doing the work we're doing, that kind of thing would never happen. It would have been exactly the story that you shared before that. I'm getting my dinner ready last night. I have my 6-year-old wrapped around my left leg, sitting on my shoe. I have my 4-year-old sitting on my shoe on my right side, wrapped around my leg. And then I have my 12-year-old giving me a hug. And then my 14-year-old going, "Daddy." And I'm like, holy cow, like, this is cool. Like, can this happen like every day? Right. It is really cool. And for a moment there, I was like, you know what? This is not going to be forever. Like, I really need to like settle into this moment and appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Even though there was that small side of me, right? I'm like, oh, I'm starving. I just want to get to the table and eat, right?
I know it.
But at the same time, I'm like, man, this is really cool, because like fast forward 5 years from now, this ain't happening, right? And if it does, I better get stronger. I better be listening to Stronger by Design more and doing more bench presses or something, so I can move these kids off my leg, right?
That's right. No, but you're so right to live in the moment and be in a constant remind mode, where it's like, what's happening right now is not where things are going to be 5-10 years from now. And as guy, I'm 44, you're 45, we're about the same age. We know how fast 5 or 10 years goes by. It's so very quick.
Crazy.
And before you know it, you're going to have a kid in college or already in the working world, out of the house. And you're going to have like all your kids are going to be in high school, and through high school, and it's going to be back to you and the wife, Bye.